Welcome to the Calder Farmstead, your place for news, analysis, and shenanigans from the American Hockey League.
Face off one by Condor, Jones, top, other point fence into the slot, a shot is gone! Josh Perry, in double,
left point, long drive, save, Kinetic, what a stop by Matisse with the left pad! Oh, there was a scramble in front of the net, denied was Matt Schicker by a miraculous piece of net binding by Matisse Kinetic.
D-laner from the red line sends it in, Hofer into his net, he stops it, Hofer looking, Hofer firing toward the empty net, he scores! Are you kidding me? Joel Hofer, a goalie goal in the Calder Cup playoffs!
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out. Right side with Fair. Brooks Light cutting to the net. Fair and let's go! He scored! He scored! It's over!
Hello, hello, hello from the TSN Trade Center set.
And Chicago, Illinois.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode 130 for March 3rd, 2023. If you're hoping for a podcast featuring tips on evaluating cattle at auction, we're not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And I'm Sarah Avampato from Full Press Hockey and SB Nation's Canes Country.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us. And if you're new to hearing Sarah and I talk about hockey, we're going to talk about at least as many of the trades that have happened that involve the AHL that we can have information on at this point. There seem like there are one or two still out there waiting to be finalized, but you know what? At some point we have to record the show. So this isn't our normal formula, but a lot has happened and we're going to run with it. We both watched a lot of AHL games and going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use of advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our YouTube channel or podcast feed, wherever you're checking us out from, and head over to episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries or Royal Road, go check that out. So you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes being Jonathan Quick in Ohio. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey? Sarah, a lot of player moves have happened, so much so that I had to do an update to the model and the graphs on a Thursday, like 2 full days after it's usually up and running, because there were so many player moves. It was like, well, let's wait. And at some point, it's just like, all right, we got to pull the trigger and make this happen. The same with this episode.
Yes.
So many moves are happening. There's still 1 or 2 out there, out in the ether, as we record, but at some point we have to record the show. So here we are. Let's get right into it, shall we? We are not going to go east to west, Atlantic to Pacific. We're just going to kind of go. And yeah, that's the way it's going to go. So let's dive right into it. First trade up on the board here. Let's talk about what Utica is doing here. Utica is getting Zachary Amon, Santeri Hataka, and Timur Ibragimov. Now, for the Utica Comets directly this season, Utica is getting nothing. They're getting nothing. Zach Amon is injured with a hip injury and is very unlikely to play this season. Hip injuries are also a serious thing for goaltenders, as hip mobility and flexibility is kind of an important thing when you play a position that is mostly dropping to your knees and moving laterally. Also, Zach Amon's not that much to get excited about because he's not very good. So I guess Adirondack will find out if he's even going to be a viable goalie post-hip injury. For Santeri Hataka, also injured with a lower body injury, got hurt in training camp. Tried to test it out in the early goings of the season, but hasn't played since November. But good news is when Hataka actually gets to the Comets, he's good. Like, he's a talented defenseman. Been good defensively, especially defending against the rush. Very good in transition. He skates well. The rest of his offensive toolbox is not great per se. He needs some work on puck skills and playmaking vision, but for a defenseman, he's a useful defenseman at minimum who prior to this injury was at least like pushing for some NHL looks in San Jose. Given that Utica just lost Nikita Okhotichuk, he's not a one-for-one swap for him. Okhotichuk is a lot more physical, a lot more kind of a pain to play against in that sense, and that's not Hataka. But Hataka definitely is more of a defense first, good, able to make good first passes in transition. So he should at least help cushion that blow in the future. I doubt that he sees the ice this season. Damir Abragamov is an ECHLer. It's like a middling one at that. So, yeah, Utica, you did not make out well at this trade deadline as the Devils did things for the Devils. But, I mean, the deal they got for Timo Meier was very, very good. They added a star player and one that could re-sign and opens up their cup window in an Eastern Conference that's a knife fight. Sarah, any thoughts on any of what Utica has at this point at 10:21 on March 2nd?
Yeah, no, this is peak. Like, we have taken guys because that's what needed for the deals to get done. They're not thinking about the AHL. The Devils are thinking about New Jersey.
I mean, to be fair, that is what they exist for.
Yeah.
For most NHL teams, their AHL team is not an afterthought, but it exists to develop players and hopefully not, do what San Diego did this year. But other than that, you're not building things for your AHL team. Your AHL team is building things for you. So to not give them a lot of credence is not that surprising. Every once in a while, it's nice to see like an NHL team clearly throw their AHL team a bone. And there are a couple of cases of that in here, but I don't blame the Devils. Yeah. This is their time. So unfortunately, it also happens to be Boston's time, Toronto's time, Tampa's time, the Rangers' time, the Hurricanes' time. So best of luck, but this is their window and they're going to go for it. All right. Let's at least stay in the Eastern Conference here and talk about the Hartford Wolfpack. They made some acquisitions here, which you don't really expect from a team that got two major wingers at the trade deadline here. But from an AHL perspective, Hartford gets Will Lockwood, Cooper Zek, and Adam Clendening. Lockwood had a big year in Abbotsford this year, much more impressive than in seasons past, but he's also shooting 19.4% this season in the AHL, which is probably not sustainable for your average player. I don't think it's sustainable for Will Lockwood, especially given what I've seen from him in previous seasons in Abbotsford. But he's someone who still, even if the goal totals come down, is a useful kind of middle six, third line kind of guy. He's fast, he's physical, he's an effective forechecker. He's shown some flashes of brilliance, but never really managed to turn that into more consistent production. But every once in a while, he'd do like a highlight reel play and be like, where is that the rest of the time? Well, if Will Lockwood could figure that out, he'd be not in the AHL. But he's likely someone who's going to be a solid kind of second, third liner for the Wolfpack, depending on, the chemistry he finds and where they see him. Cooper Zek is a dude. Undersized bottom four AHL defender, some offensive upside, but not someone that I'm, jumping up and down. We got Cooper Zek in Hartford. Nothing about his game really stands out. He just kind of is, which is in and of itself not a terrible thing. He's not going to wow you, but at least doesn't make a lot of like face palm level mistakes, which is nothing. He's someone your Chris Knobloch can throw out on the ice and not worry about a lot, which is good. Which brings us to Adam Clendening, who is not necessarily that guy. Like, Adam Clendening's an offensive defenseman. He's semi-capable on the power play. And by that, I mean he shoots far too often from distance, which I don't like. but he's good at distributing on the power play. He's capable of setting guys up well on the power play. He's decent at breaking pucks out. So when he's not just throwing pucks uselessly at the net from the point, he has good offensive upside. Defensively, he's not great. He's better in zone than he is defending the rush because his skating is bad and he's easily beaten by dudes who have speed to them. They can just walk into the outside pretty easily, and that's been something that's happened with him for quite a while now. That makes him kind of a liability defending the rush. But once, play settles down in the defensive zone to the cycle, he's much more competent. He's not a perfect replacement for someone like Andy Welinski, who they lost, but he should at least be able to, overall big picture, fill the gap that Andy Welinski leaves, especially if he's given power play time and directly told by the coaching staff not to just be this trigger-happy Han Solo shoot first kind of mentality. So if we can get that from Adam Clendening, I think the Wolfpack made a very good acquisition here. Especially, I don't think they used Andy Welinski terribly well. So hopefully getting someone like Clendening will give them a piece that they use more efficiently. Sarah, any thoughts on what Rockford has done, at least that we know of definitively to this point?
I just think so. Way back in the day, like when I first started covering hockey, I started out covering the Chicago Blackhawks and the IceHogs because I live here. And it was around the time when Clendening was a prospect in their system. And it's just fascinating to see that all these years later, he is the exact same guy, just older and slower that he was when he was a prospect, and the same things that kept him from being, an impact player in the NHL. Despite, everyone, myself included, is always too precious about prospects, but people were like, oh, how dare you, like, free Adam. But he has been the same guy for however many years he's been in this league.
Yeah, that's the one thing too, is like when guys have a lot of success, coming through juniors and stuff, playing their game, a lot of them are very reticent to change that when they get to the professional level and it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And we see that happen to a lot of guys where they peak in, like that mid-level kind of AHL player because they're unwilling to evolve and accept the fact that what they used to do to score doesn't work at this level anymore.
Yeah.
But that there's the AHL is a graveyard of guys that scored a bunch of points in juniors and just the ways that they scored were not translatable.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here. Let's talk about the Providence Bruins. Sarah, what happened in Rhode Island?
Yes, I think that's the state. I think that's a real state. Providence has gotten Shane Bowers. So he's a player that, he's had some raw tools throughout his career, but he's never really put them all together at the same time, hasn't really developed further. So he's someone who's a bit of a project, if they are willing to turn him into a project. He's an effective skater, but the offense tools for him haven't really aged well, and that is showing in the stats that we see from him. Goals, assists, all those the easy numbers. He is defensively capable, but that's kind of it. He's a penalty killer. He's a shutdown center who might make some offense on accident. Probably a classic "oops, it went off my shin pads" kind of guy, but he's a guy. I think this is another case of the Boston Bruins are looking out for the Boston Bruins. Providence has been fine. I don't know that Providence needs to do anything, so this is what they got.
I don't know. I remember we talked the last show about how their depth is kind of once like one or two guys go, like they're a very top heavy team. So I feel like this is at least something. Like, is Shane Bowers ever going to be a top 6 AHLer? At least at this point, it looks very unlikely. But like, is he someone who could chip in 15 to 20 points over a 72 game season, or at least the pace for that? I think so. And that's not great. You're not like, my God, thankfully Shane Bowers was here to save our season. But he's someone who I feel like is at least a competent depth piece, and Providence does need that. Like, their depth beyond the top two lines is real not great and is definitely not fit for higher duty. And I don't think Shane Bowers is necessarily that, but at least he's someone I could squint at and hope that he could be. Whereas like put him on the third line in the penalty kill, and I think he'd be fine there. I definitely think he's an upgrade over what Providence has going right now. So it's a move that at least makes sense for them, shoring up some depth. But more than that, it's very unsexy.
Yeah, that should be the tagline of the show, really. for most of these moves,
a lot of unsexy moves. But, you know, a lot of AHL moves. We're an AHL podcast. Here we are. All right, let's move on and talk about Belleville and what they did. Sarah, take it away.
All right, so Belleville has gotten some help in net. They literally needed like any pro-level goaltender. They needed a person to put in the net who had been there before. They recently ran a tandem of a U Sports goaltender and a beer leaguer after injuries forced Sugard up to Ottawa. The rest, like literally every other goaltender in the system was gone. They had nothing. This is why ECHL affiliates are basically fake, because instead of trying to call up a goalie from their ECHL affiliate, which is the Allen Americans, very close to Belleville, totally in the same, instead of that, they traded the wonderful, highly regarded future considerations for what is basically an ECHL goaltender in Dylan Ferguson. They needed a like somewhat possibly capable body in net that also, like, aside from not letting in goals, isn't going to leak their pre-scout. And so they got that. Also, fun fact about Dylan Ferguson, you may remember him from making his NHL debut when he was 19, when he was called up on an emergency basis from his WHL team because literally every other goaltender in Vegas's system fell apart all at the exact same time. So this is like, I hope Dylan Ferguson is feeling some sort of weird deja vu full circle. Like this organization, every goaltender has just imploded. Help.
I feel like before Dylan Ferguson got this trade, we were dangerously close to checking off another bingo square for one of us.
Yes.
Because yes, the U Sports goaltender and the beer leaguer guy that they had in Belleville were technically not e-bugs, but like I would have counted them.
Yes.
If they would have beat Toronto, like a U Sports goalie you signed to a same-day PTO is an e-bug. Like, let's be serious. The guy they got from a not real professional league that's an e-bug.
Yes.
Like as soon as I saw that too, I was like, oh, what is the betting line against Belleville today? Yeah, we're gonna put all the money we have on that. Thank you very much. All right, we have a lot of moves to talk about, so we're just going to keep rolling here. This is rapid fire here, because initially we were going to do a full episode, and then we saw how many trades happened that we had to talk about. We're like, all right, we're just making this the episode because it would take us 45 minutes to do all of this. So we're going to keep going here. Cleveland gets Alex Wayland and John Gillies. Alex Wayland's a hard-working guy from the Hartford Wolfpack. A surprisingly effective skater. The little bits and pieces I've seen of his film, he's got some wheels to him, some hockey IQ attached, but there's a lot of, like, when the puck gets on his stick, you're like, oh, now I know why you're a guy that doesn't get power play time, is a bottom line. Yeah, like, there are a lot of puck skills that are missing, not a lot of shooting talent going on there, but, like, he's someone who very clearly could be a fourth line grinder, fourth line energy guy at the AHL level, but not much else is happening there. John Gillies, on the other hand, I think is an interesting piece. As we've talked about pretty much the entire season, Cleveland's goaltending is not much better than what Belleville was playing last week. It's been just one fire after another. And while John Gillies has not been great in Tucson, to be fair to him, who has been, he at least has shown me a track record of being a competent AHL goalie recently. He was once what felt like the Stockton Heat's forever starting goaltender. He would give you good work, occasionally steal a game, occasionally blow one, but was overall kind of like a a slightly above average to average league starter, which is not nothing in the AHL. Like those guys, they're not every team has an average league starter. And you need guys like that on your roster, if nothing else, as your 1B. But then the COVID pandemic hit. And since that season, he's played for 8 different organizations in 3 years. I want to repeat that. He's played for 8 different organizations, not like 8 teams where he played for like Philly and Lehigh Valley or Boston and Providence. He's played for 8 different organizations in the last 3 years, never playing more than 20 games in any of them, including this season in Tucson. He got hurt for a little bit, but was at least on pace to play there. I would like to believe that there's still a capable AHL goalie in there, a thing that Cleveland desperately needs if they're going to try and make a last-ditch effort to make the playoffs in the North. But goaltending, as always, it's voodoo. And Cleveland hasn't exactly been giving its goaltenders a safe and stable environment to operate in. So I don't have a lot of hope for John Gillies in this spot. I think he could surprise here if you're a Monsters fan and are like, we got a goalie who at least has been competent recently. I'm not sure what to make of John Gillies at this point. He's also, I want to say 29 off the top of my head. And yeah, that's not over the hill in terms of professional athlete age, but where we start to see minor league players and goalies kind of find father time catching them a little bit more is around this period. So he's recovering from injury this year. Mixed bag. You could tell me basically, you could be a time traveler and come tell me, oh, John Gillies was great. He played, 915, 920 goal save percentage in Cleveland. I'd be like, okay, I could see that. You could tell me he was an 890 goalie in Cleveland. I'd be like, yep, can definitely see that. Anywhere in between, I'd believe. So like all of the outcomes are believable here for John Gillies in Cleveland. I tend to believe more of the lower level ones, not because I don't think that he's capable of it, because I do. I like to think that he's still got some gas left in the tank to be an above average goalie, but Cleveland is not the place for defense right now. And given what I've seen from him this year, I struggle to believe he's going to suddenly break out the brick wall parts of his game. Sarah, any thoughts on Cleveland before we move on here?
I know, like, people were hoping, I saw like Blue Jackets fans hoping whenever whenever it wasn't clear that the Blue Jackets were going to kindly send Jonathan Quick on his way to a team that was going to do something and not just tank. Like, people were hoping like, oh, this is going to trickle down to Cleveland and everything's going to go back to normal. And like, all of our goaltenders that have been like shuffled up to the NHL, like, will come back. And like, I guess that's kind of happened because they also got Michael Hutchinson now. Like, Columbus is just like, I feel like that move is extra tanky from them, but like, yeah, the Cleveland needs a goaltender who's just going to go there and do the work. They've used 6 different guys this year. I looked, and none of them. The one with the best goals against average is Jonas Korpisalo whenever he was there for like a conditioning
game.
Like literally one game. Like everyone else is like, the next best is Jet Greaves at a 3.42. Yeah. So like they just need a body. So you've got one.
Yeah. If John Gillies can give them league average goaltending, that would be a huge leap forward. Like, I want to still believe in Daniil Tarasov a little bit, but he's always been a project. And I don't feel like he's exactly gotten, like, he's been hurt a bunch. He's been called up a bunch. He's been in press boxes in Columbus a bunch. I want to believe that if they gave him time to develop and work on his game in Cleveland, he would get there. But I don't think he's going to be given that opportunity this season, rather. Yeah. Also, can we take a time out here and talk about the John Quick thing in Columbus for like just really quick? Because I just want to try and understand what, like, all right, I understand you trade Korpisalo, you want another goalie.
Yeah.
The Kings offered you Quick as part of the Gavrikov deal. Sure. Like, and I thought they got way more, like they didn't get as much as what had been rumored the price for Gavrikov was, because apparently teams realized that Gavrikov's just not that good. But whatever, you got a return package for him that's respectable.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Quick. And then Jonathan Quick realized that he didn't want to live in Ohio after living in LA for a bunch of years, which sure.
Yeah.
And then they were like, all right, we'll send him somewhere else. And they traded him to Vegas for nothing.
Yes.
Literally, I would have had more respect if they sent him for future considerations. But like, you got Michael Hutchinson and a 7th round pick in what, 2026?
Right.
Like,
I will say, as like a Kings person, I was honestly terrified that they would somehow have gotten like flipped Quick for a better return from Vegas somehow. Which Vegas is so bad at things sometimes that it wouldn't have surprised me if they somehow gave up like a really good prospect and like a good so I was terrified that I was going to be like, if these Yahoos get a better deal than the Kings got for flipping him, but fortunately no, they just gave him away for like a guy.
But that was the thing that I don't understand the most. Like, you retained half of Quick's salary, and teams that are playing middleman for like someone else's trade, like Montreal or Arizona or whatever, like the team that I think was Montreal in Patrick Kane's case, or Minnesota or whoever it was that retained for Patrick Kane, got more in return for just being the retainer than the Columbus Blue Jackets got for retaining Jonathan Quick's salary. Like, I don't understand how you literally could not have gotten less for Jonathan Quick for a team that wanted him.
Right.
Like, you couldn't have gotten, I don't know, a B prospect and a 4th round pick in 2 years from now. That would have at least been like, all right, that's not much, but like Jonathan Quick is old and not very good, and Vegas needed him. At least you got something. Like, this is basically just said, all right, sure, whatever is left over in your scrap heap at the bottom,
you want to
take a washed AHL goaltender and literally a handful of lotto scratchers and a crisp high five. Like, my God, Columbus, have some respect for yourself. All right, let's move on to at least a trade that I'm a lot more excited about than apparently everyone else. So I'll look. Wilkes-Barre Scranton gets Peter Dilibatore, and I'm okay with this. Like, I have been beating the drum that Henderson has been misusing players in its system like the whole season. Isaiah Seville and Peter Dilibatore are 2 of them, but there are lots more. But like, I'm a lot higher in Dilibatore than both the Model I program and apparently just general consensus around the league, given that he went for nothing. I thought it was a mistake that Henderson sent him to the coast when he was on Power Play 2 the year before and was decent on Power Play 2. Like, he wasn't great, but he was fine. He did the job well. I don't think he's been utilized effectively in Henderson in the short stints he's been there. And what's weirder is, like, it's the same coaching staff. It's roughly the same roster. So it's not like someone came in and stole his job. Like, that's not what happened. They just decided, no, we don't like you anymore. Like, they're Andy in Toy Story. But Dilibatore is a capable defender. He's valuable in transition. He's shown flashes of being able to distribute the puck on the power play. And yes, like, even I'm not so high on him to admit that there aren't flaws in his game. He lacks some of the more nuanced puck skills, doesn't really have a lot of shooting talent. So for someone who has some offensive upside, he lacks some of the tools to kind of make that realization. But still, he's a quality skater. He can defend the rush. He can move the puck to where it needs to be, more or less in transition. There's value in that, and Wilkes-Barre Scranton needs defensemen like that because they straight don't have them anymore. Not since Pojo left. So I like this move a lot for Wilkes-Barre Scranton, even though it's very much like, he's probably a number 4 and maybe gets PP2 time there, but like, at least he's in the AHL now, because Henderson, for whatever reason, was like, no, you should be in the coast somewhere for the majority of the season. Meanwhile, let's definitely put Zach Hayes and Braden Paschal out there. Sorry, AHL All-Star Braden Paschal. God help me. I think we have actually made it to the end of the Eastern Conference here. We're going to take a break. After the break, we will get to the Western Conference trades, or some facsimile of them. I think one of them will probably break by the time we come back from break. But if you're here for an Eastern Conference team and this is your jumping off point, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Our other episodes are a lot more structured than this one, but this has been chaos. Check us out on social media. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. And we are back. If you listen to ads, thanks. I don't know why you did that, but sure, we appreciate it nonetheless. Let's talk about some trades that happened in the Western Conference. Let's start with Rockford, as they were busy and are rumored to continue to be busy as more things develop here. But at this point, we're calling it right where we're at. Rockford is getting Anders Bjork, Pavel Gogolev, Hunter Drew, Andy Walensky, and Rocco Grimaldi. That's at least a lot of pieces, some more interesting than others. Sarah, what say you on the things that Rockford has done?
So I feel like a good handful of these are ones that it basically was like the Blackhawks they own the Rockford IceHogs. So the big team was basically like, hey, other big team, like, let's just all do nice things for each other's players. There's a lot of guys here who are kind of being done a favor by their original team to get them somewhere that's going to make the playoffs, that's going to have a good chance at a run. Or in the case of Anders Bjork, someone who could probably have a better path back to the NHL, maybe with Chicago, than he was going to get with Buffalo. We have guys like Hunter Drew or Rocco Grimaldi, who, in case you're just tuning in to what's happening in the West, the Gulls are not making the playoffs. So good on that organization for sending those guys, both of them, Grimaldi, especially a veteran player, sending them somewhere that they're going to get to have a good playoff run. So looking at those guys, Anders Bjork, he's got 25 points in 42 games with Rochester. He's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season, so it's entirely possible that Chicago is going to keep him around for next year because they're going to need bodies and they're going to need to get to the cap floor. And so guys like that will be helpful. He has spent most of his career in the NHL to date. This is the first year that he's spent the entire season in the NHL or in the AHL. Even when he was starting his career, he would split time between NHL and AHL. So he's a guy who definitely wants to get back to the NHL, and I think everyone sort of sees this trade as a better path for him to do that than he was going to get with Buffalo. Hunter Drew came from San Diego. He's a defenseman / forward. He actually made the switch to forward back in the bubble season. Forwards in San Diego kept getting caught up. They were hurt, they were sick, and they needed someone to go up there. And so Hunter Drew has kind of been doing double duty. With call-ups and injuries in Chicago, Rockford recently had like the most atrocious blue line that I have maybe ever seen. Like signing like 30-year-old ECHL guys who I don't even think have played that much this year on a PTO to roll out a body there. So it'll be interesting to see where Rockford uses him, either as a forward or as a defenseman. When he was in San Diego, he did well with Yoel Bouchard, who really kind of helped develop him into a forward and really sort of championed him as being someone who could play this role. But this year he took a big step back. But then again, who on the Gulls hasn't? So this is another one that's kind of a change of scenery for him. See how he does with a different team, maybe playing back in his natural position. We'll see. Rocco Grimaldi, Rockford fans are very familiar with him because he spent years in Nashville's system, was a key player for the Milwaukee Admirals for years, and now he is back to the Midwest. Aside from Lucas Dostal, Grimaldi is basically one of the biggest reasons why the Gulls have as many wins as they do. He had kind of a slower start to the season, but as the year progressed, he's really shown that ability of his to take over games and at least get the Gulls to overtime, if not get them the win. This weekend against Ontario, the game that I saw, he was doing a lot in that game to help drive play. He gets to loose pucks. He was overall just really noticeable the whole time. It was a 2-1 win for the Gulls in that game. Grimaldi had an assist on the goal in regulation, and then he had the game-winning goal in overtime. So he is someone who is going to be really important for Rockford, especially if Lucas Reichel is going to be up in Chicago. He just got called up recently. Grimaldi is going to be huge to help drive their offense, regardless of if Reichel comes back or not. Gogolev is a guy. He's a 6'1" left winger. He spent all of this season in the ECHL except for one game. He did perform really well in the ECHL. He had 48 points in 33 games. Right now he's reporting to Rockford, but that may change. But then again, they don't have bodies, so we'll see. And then Andy Walensky, we talked a little earlier about Adam Clendenning. He was the one that was involved in that swap. Walensky's additional help for that IceHogs blue line, like I said, it's real bad right now. He's a veteran player. He's been around since 2016. 16 points in 40 games played. He basically fills the slot that Adam Clendenning held as a human, but not as a player. He's a different style player than him, more of a playmaker than a shooter. His skating is much better than Adam Clendenning's. He's better against the rush, and just really wasn't used very well by Hartford on the power play. So he's going to have an opportunity to come in with the IceHogs and help out there, maybe work on their interesting power play system.
Yeah, he was not well. And we talked about this a couple of times when we talked about Hartford, that he was a dude that was at one point leading their team in power play points, but still not getting power play time consistently when he was healthy. And it's just yep, that's maybe not how you should be deploying your team, just as a thought. But I'm trying to see, because I think Rockford made one other move. Yeah, they did. So Carson Giesewitz went to Rochester for future considerations. Okay.
Yeah, that happened.
That's let me make sure that I'm thinking correctly of Carson Giesewitz here. Let's see what his boxcar stats are. Yeah, 22 points in 114 games as an IceHog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Moving on. Well, I will say one thing. Grimaldi is going to be an interesting piece in Rockford. That is a dude who probably should still be in the NHL at some level. And when you watch him get the puck, he's someone that you don't have to wonder what his skill set is. As soon as he touches the puck, so the fact that, Chicago clearly not making the playoffs, and they're going to get potentially Reichel, Cini, Gust as a first line, and a second line that is Rocco Grimaldi.
Mm-hmm. That's scary.
If Arvid Soderblom can find his game again, which I'd love to believe is possible. I don't know what's been up with him this season, but last season he was phenomenal, and this season he's struggled. But if he can be, 3/4 of the goal that he was last season, Rockford can go places in the postseason with that top six and him in net. But let's move on. Let's talk about Milwaukee here. Grimaldi's old stomping grounds. Man, that would be a fun vengeance series to see Rocco Grimaldi go to Milwaukee and light them up. But Milwaukee gets Isaac Radcliffe from Lehigh Valley. Or wait, no. Where does Isaac Radcliffe come from?
I think you're right.
Was he in? I know he was in Lehigh Valley last year. I haven't quite followed him as much this year. I know Austin Rushoff is from Hartford, and that's who else we're going to talk about. Radcliffe, though, in general, big body, plays a kind of style of game that's not really typical for his size. He's 6'5", 203, according to the AHL website, but he's not much of a net front battler that you think of as a power forward from a guy that size, like you see from Tim Gettinger or Buddy Robinson or who's the guy that Raheem Zahorna. Radcliffe is physical. He'll throw his body around, but his standout skill is really his stick handling, his ability to kind of deke. But he has a weird level of stick handling. He's able to deke and use his stick handling well. It's high level, but his puck control is not great because he doesn't use his body well to shield the puck from defenders. He can deke well, but it's a matter of keeping guys off of putting the puck in places that other players can't reach, and using his body to shield it that he struggles with. And that's kind of what's caused him to be in this weird place developmentally, where he can make moves and get the puck to where it needs to go, but he's not great in tight spaces in those specific contexts. Like you'll see him make a lot of turnovers in those places because he's putting the puck in places that guys can reach it. But he's shown flashes of higher end abilities. He's shown flashes of quick release and good accuracy, but it seems like he's never managed to string them together for longer than, a hot streak. He's also battled a bunch of injuries, some serious ones as well. I'm hoping that a change of scenery here will do him some good. Carl Taylor is quite the developer when it comes to turning guys who are AHLers into, maybe not bona fide NHLers, but to guys who can play in the NHL, at least on a call-up or cup of coffee basis. Hopefully he can work some magic with Isaac Radcliffe, and hopefully the change of scenery will do him good. But for right now, Radcliffe does not seem to be more than kind of a bottom six checking line option at the AHL level. And Rushoff is at least similar in that sense. Big physical guy, but doesn't bring a lot more to the table than that. He's benefited from some good shooting luck and some power play time last season, but that's gone away this year in Hartford, and so his production has kind of just like Radcliffe, he's kind of a checking line option, but I don't really expect much more from Austin Rushoff at this point. What's interesting though is we talked a couple weeks ago about the Admirals and them being a very different looking and feeling team than they had been in previous years. We thought of the Admirals in previous years as being more of the big bad Admirals, a physical kind of in your face, grind you down team that wasn't necessarily as fast or was a skilled. Like they still had skilled players like Grimaldi and Glass and Cole Schneider, but like they weren't a flashy team. And now, like this season, they've been a little more flash. They've been a little more speed. They've been a little more skill. And getting Rushoff and Ratcliffe kind of seems like they're going in the opposite direction for bigger, more physical guys as they gear up for hopefully a playoff run. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think that might be part of what motivates that. I feel like teams look at the playoffs and they start thinking about, okay, we need to be more physical. We know that that's how part of the playoffs go. And they haven't necessarily had that in their lineup, especially with now, guys are getting called back up to Nashville because Nashville is also semi-selling. So they've had some holes in the roster there as well. But this feels like a move made for the playoffs of, we know at least one of these series is going to be gross and we need someone to be big.
Yeah, it's true. Nashville did a very good job selling Mikael Granlund to moving on. San Jose. Sarah, talk to me about the Barracuda.
All right, so the Barracuda, they got Nikita Hochuk. He is a stay-at-home defenseman, old school. Guys like him don't really exist anymore. He's physical. He defends the net front well. He's good against the rush. He kills penalties, doesn't take a ton of them. He has 4 minor penalties against him on the season, which is impressive for a guy playing that role. He's very no nonsense. He's a pain to play against, but like there is zero offense in exchange there. He is someone that you put with your offensive-minded defenseman who maybe isn't as good as defending to bring some balance between the two of them. But the problem is with him, he's a lefty, and that means he's going to play his off-hand side in order to make a pair with someone like Pouliot or Knizev work. That's not great. That's not the kind of position you want to put him in to succeed, but he will be big, he will be mean, but he'll stay out of the penalty box, which that's not nothing.
No, it's definitely not, especially for a team in San Jose who lacks, they don't lack physical defensemen. They lack effective physical defensemen. Like Onyebuchi is physical, but not effective. Like he just goes and runs around trying to hit dudes as opposed to like playing the position. Whereas Hochuk is better than that. But yeah, they do have a very large glut of left-handed defensemen. And I know like right shot D are apparently the hardest thing to find in hockey, which is always been weird to me because I am both right-handed and a defenseman, and I didn't realize that I could have marketed just that as a usable hockey skill. But it is weird that like so many useful offensive defensemen in professional hockey are left-handed. Like I'd be curious to see like some kind of brain study about that, like being left-handed, looking at left-handed people's brains versus right-handed people's brains, like they're all screwed up. I have no idea how left-handed people even function. Like, this is science nerd Sean speaking, because I've seen fMRIs of both handedness people, and it's wild. But like, yeah, especially to playing your offside. Like, I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is to play. Like, if you're a right-handed player playing on the left side or vice versa, like pucks coming around the wall are more challenging to get because you have to feel them on your backhand, which is harder, especially to like fielding dump-ins and pucks off the wall as a defenseman is doing so in like a clean, fluid manner is like one of the most important skills you can have as a professional hockey defenseman. It also, keeps you from making D-to-D passes smoothly because you have to kind of pull back and then pass instead of being able to put it right away. So you can't make a lot of those one-touch passes. That's important. Like, not to mention too, you're now defending on your offside. So your stick is not in the position that is more ideal for defending in those spots. So like there's a lot to it that's more nuanced as to why you don't want to put guys that are left-handed on the right side and vice versa. And it takes a much better defenseman to be able to play their offside, or a very specific one to be able to do it. That's why you always see in the NHL, like your top defenseman, your Cale Makars, your Adam Foxes, Miro Heiskanens. Even going back in history, your Nick Lindströms, they played their strong side pretty much exclusively for those reasons. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how San Jose deploys Hodchuk. I'm cautiously optimistic, but it's San Jose.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. The Colorado Eagles pick up Keith Kincaid and all of the NFTs that he's created in that time as well. That was part of the contract. Pavel Francouz is hurt, and so is Trent Miner, which leads the Colorado organization to need a body in net, and Keith Kincaid is very much clearing the bar for random body in net. He's a veteran goalie who still has something left in the tank. He's been good this season, but he's also been behind a Providence defense that's been pretty much the best in the league or very close to. I think off the top of my head that Hershey has the highest rated defensive environment, but Providence is top 3, top 5. Like, they've been very good defensively. So what Keith Kincaid is currently is a little harder to evaluate because being, behind a stellar defense definitely tends to boost you up a little bit. Still, he's looked recovered from whatever nagged him at Hartford at the end of last season, which I will still say he was definitely playing through injury at the end because he just looked wrong. But he should still be a competent 1B goalie to Jonas Johansson. I'm not expecting a whole ton more from Keith Kincaid. And once we see Pavel Francouz get healthy or Trent Miner get healthy, it's going to be, probably Trent Miner stays in the ECHL, I imagine. But when Francouz gets healthy, what happens with Justus Anunen and Kincaid and Jonas Johansson is going to be kind of an interesting juggling act. Kincaid's been basically playing, part of a 3-head monster in Providence all year, so he's familiar with that, at least. So that could work out, but I don't know if that's the way that the Eagles want to play it this year. Sarah, any thoughts on Keith Kincaid and whatever NFTs of, the Rocky Mountains he's going to make in his time there?
I mean, that move makes me wonder if the injury situation in net for Colorado is maybe not as good as, are people not close to coming back? Like, is the injury to Francouz worse maybe than people think it is? AHL teams are notoriously tight-lipped about literally anything, about anyone's status. I always feel lucky when I can get anyone to tell me anything about someone. But it was a nice move from Boston / Providence to send him somewhere that he's going to get regular minutes. No one ever wants to have a 3 goalie rotation. That's just really, really hard on everybody. But it makes me wonder if he's going to be pushed into service more because the injuries aren't going to clear up as quickly as maybe they hoped.
Interesting. So it shows here that Justus Annunen was sent back from emergency loan today. So I guess we're going to have answers about what's going to happen with Kincaid and Annunen and Jonas Johansson a lot sooner than we had previously thought.
Never mind.
Because,
scratch all of that.
Yeah. I still think, you could make a viable three goalie rotation. Like Providence has been making it work for most of the year. Like, is that ideal? No, but you keep all your goalies fresh and you have options when it comes to the playoffs because the Eagles are going to the playoffs pretty clearly, and the West is the West is wide open, but also the Pacific is very top heavy. So like if they can maybe sneak by, Calgary or Coachella Valley in the first round, I mean, it's an open competition at that point. So well, I think Keith Kincaid can be part of the solution as opposed to being part of the precipice, but that remains to be seen. All right. We dodged talking about this trade earlier, but we're here. Let's do it. Henderson gets Dyson Mayo. Part of me wonders if a change of scenery to a more competent organization can give Dyson Mayo a new lease on life, but I kind of doubt that. He's got some raw offensive tools, but there's not a whole lot here. He's like a slightly more offensive capable Zach Hayes, which is not saying a whole ton, but he's kind of a bottom pair at best defenseman that isn't. He's not a player I would have been jumping up and down to acquire for Henderson. Like when you're getting traded for the contract of Shea Weber so that you can meet the cap floor, that should tell you about the valuation that the Coyotes organization put on Dyson Mayo. But he's a guy, and he's apparently going to get some playing time in Henderson. Godspeed to the Silver Knights for that. All right, Sarah, the San Diego Gulls did stuff. They did not, just ship off all those players and get nothing in return. Tell me about what they have to look forward to.
Well, they did get a lot of very nice, shiny future considerations. So, gotta stitch that jersey up. No, the big moves that they did, they received just Josiah Slavin and Dylan Sekura, both from Rockford. So for Slavin, the view from Chicago folks on this one is that he's probably going to have an easier time cracking an NHL roster in Anaheim than he is with Chicago. And so it's giving him a little clearer path to getting regular NHL playing time, a change of scenery for him. This year hasn't been the same version of him that he looked fantastic last year. He had 32 points in 49 games. I think really showed a lot of promise. He is somehow 24 years old already. I could have sworn that he was not that old. But I was wrong. I really thought that he was like a couple years out of juniors, but that is false. He does have some NHL experience, so he knows how it goes. This year, though, 11 points in 51 games for a Rockford team that is much better than last year's Rockford team. So things just haven't been going well for him. He's already gotten into 3 games for San Diego. This trade happened sometime last week, I think. He's gotten a goal and an assist in those 3 games. So like the Gulls are going to be happy if anyone makes any points whatsoever. So, good on him. Sekura, nothing about this acquisition makes sense, especially for Sekura, who goes from having a sure shot at a playoff run to the Gulls. It's going to be great because he gets to live on the beach. That's cool, but the rest of it kind of stinks for him. He is immediately going to take over Rocco Grimaldi's spot on the top line. That feels like why he was in this move. He's another player, though, who's been having a tough year. He has 32 points over 52 games played this year. Last year, he had 73 in 60 with Colorado. That was the best year of his career. It was a little bit of an outlier, but still, this year is not the same Dylan Sekura that we're used to seeing. He's floated around Chicago's system for a while. He was a 2014 draft pick. For a while, was one of those guys that, one of those NCAA prospects that people were like terrified that he wasn't going to sign. He was going to go to free agency like people thought of him that highly as a Blackhawks prospect, but he just never really translated his college success to the NHL. And so it's just been sort of permanently in that like tweener role. He'll be good for the Gulls, but I don't really know what the point of that acquisition was aside from just Chicago, Rockford needing to send a contract out.
Sorry, I'm smiling over here because I just learned. Guess who is starting in net for the Henderson Silver Knights and has 17 saves on 17 shots as we record?
Oh no!
Oh yes. Yes. I somehow missed that Isaiah Seville got called up by the Henderson Silver Knights.
It's your time.
It's bingo time, baby. Let's go. This is yep. Yeah. We do have to keep going.
We do. I didn't know if you needed a moment for that.
As much as I want to revel in being right about Isaiah Seville and Save Us Seville, we have to move on. It makes me so sad. Really quick here, yeah. Sakura should probably be. I mean, he's not a plug and play for oh my God, Rocco Grimaldi. Yeah. But he's definitely someone who at least brings enough offensive punch to play on the first line in San Diego, which is to say he can shoot.
Yeah.
Slavin, we talked about him. I feel like we did a deeper dive on him earlier in the season about what's gone wrong for him and that there are still good parts to his game that are there, but that the situation that he's had in Rockford has not clicked with the skill set that he's had. And he's been kind of saddled with line mates that didn't necessarily do the things that he needed them to do to bridge that gap. So at least in San Diego, it's a fresh start. And I'm sure next season when they have a different coach, he will, get a better opportunity if he chooses to stay. But I think both of them are good ads for San Diego, but in a season that's basically just, counting down the days until it's over. Like it wouldn't surprise me if there are calendars and guys' homes that are basically just crossing off the days until they can go golf.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We got two more to go through here. Let's talk about another player that we've highlighted recently too. Bakersfield gets Cam Dineen. Sarah, I've already talked a bunch about Cam Dineen. It's your turn.
Yeah, so if you missed last week's episode, or if you for some reason chose not to listen to the segment on the Tucson Roadrunners, which I mean, how dare you? If you missed it, you missed Sean outlining what Cam Dineen brings to that team. So if you're a Bakersfield fan and you want to learn more about Cam Dineen, go check out last week's episode because we did do a pretty deep dive into him. But the highlights of Cam Dineen, this is his fifth year pro. He's been steadily increasing his game over his career. He's having the best year of his career so far. 35 points in 50 games, which basically crushes any of his previous seasons. He is sixth in overall scoring from defensemen in the AHL. So that is not nothing, especially for being on the Tucson Roadrunners. He's been developing his offensive instincts a little bit better. He's learning when to join play, when to hang back. He's making smarter choices. Skating, not great, but he's reliable. You can work with that. Bakersfield is trending up. They've won 6 of their last 10. So I feel like Cam Dineen is getting a great opportunity here to help with the playoff push more than it would matter in Tucson. And, just really get a chance to play on a team that is slightly better than the one he just left.
Yeah, and this basically becomes kind of a 1-for-1 swap here, and we'll merge these two together. Bakersfield getting Cam Dineen and Tucson getting Michael Kesselring. If it were me, I'd be much happier about getting Cam Dineen. He's a little older. He definitely still has some parts of his game to edge out, but the two of them feel like kind of opposites in that sense, where Kesselring lacks kind of the awareness and the polish, but has a lot of the raw tools. Whereas Dineen doesn't have necessarily the raw tools, doesn't have the puck skills or the shooting talent, but has more of the awareness, the mindset, the instincts you want. And Kesselring, the Condors fans seem pretty broken up about this one. This is a player that became kind of a fan favorite there, and I don't blame them. It's always tough to see a guy in the AHL who stuck around for a while for a team in a league that is incredibly transient to have a guy who's stuck around for a couple seasons, go, that pulls the heartstrings a little bit if you're a big fan of the team. 23-year-old right-hand defenseman having a career year, 22 points in 49 games. I want to say 13 of those are goals. Third year in the AHL. Big dude, physical dude, but also incredibly trigger happy. When we talked about why Bakersfield's power play was not succeeding, Michael Kesselring was one of the parts of it because of his willingness to just shoot pucks from distance with no setup, no traffic, just, I'm getting a little bit of pressure. Throw the puck on net. I will never get benched for throwing the puck on net. And that definitely was one of many causes why Bakersfield's power play was not succeeding. But he has 13 goals this year, which on its face looks great, but he's also shooting 8.2% and is a guy who shoots almost exclusively from the shadow of the blue line. So that 8.2% is going to come down, if not throughout the rest of this year, in subsequent seasons. Like, I do not believe that Michael Kesselring is that much better of a shooter than he was last year. Is more of he's getting better luck with the shots that he's had. They're still not good shots. But to speak to his ability, like, he's a big, physical, and capable net front defender. He's a decent defender on the rush. He's someone who's capable of handling things in his own end. He's somewhat useful in transition, but not the fastest skater. He's a decent distributor on the power play when he's not throwing pucks away. So as long as you can kind of get that mentality out of his head of shooting pucks from distance with no setup, with no, pass coming to him, and a shot from a Royal Road pass, or a shot that gets through traffic or something like that. Just a straight, naked, Wild West stare down from 85 feet away to the goaltender. If you can get those out of his game, I think Kesselring's a good defenseman, someone who has a lot of ability, but like, that's something that just drives him right into the ground. I think he's someone that could be a call-up candidate for Arizona, especially as at this point, pretty much anyone in Tucson is a call-up candidate for Arizona. They were playing Boko Amama at the end of the year last year. He scored an NHL goal. So like, if you're in Tucson, you literally can make the NHL at a moment's notice. The difference is you'll be playing in a smaller arena. But I think Kesselring is someone who could be successful in Tucson. He definitely seems to fit their big, physical, grinding kind of mentality that they're looking for. And he has some offensive skills, but like I said, just too trigger happy and throws pucks away. Sarah, any closing thoughts from the trades that we've talked about so far before we do have a very haphazardly prepared start bench ship?
That was so, like, I would love it to know after the trade deadline, like, passes in a day or whatever, how this one compares to past years in terms of volume, because it feels like there were a lot more, especially now. Like, usually the AHL deals all trickle in at the very end. It's like 2 minutes before the deadline, and we're starting to hear about all these random guy for guy swaps. But there's been a lot of AHL movement way earlier than usual, I think. And it just feels like it's just a lot of throwing guys around.
I feel like this has been the busiest period prior to the actual day of the deadline. Like, it feels like usually the deadline is the day of the deadline or the day before, and like maybe one or two big kind of things that teams are trying to get a jump on and get guys a little more comfortable early on. But that's it. Whereas this is like, the deadline is still tomorrow. We are 100% going to have more trades to talk about on next week's episode, but hopefully like there'll only be 2 or 3 of them. So we don't have to spend currently an hour and 3 minutes just talking about guys that got traded. Like, we were going to do a full episode and then we saw the volume of trades and we're like, yeah, this is going to be like a 3-hour episode. Yeah. I don't even want to record that, let alone have someone listen to it. So we decided to go this route. But yeah, I feel like this has definitely been busier from the AHL side of things. Usually it's like there are a handful of guys that get moved and they're a lot more just dudes. Like, oh, you got a third liner for future considerations or a 6th round pick or something. Whereas here we've had like almost actual hockey trades. So I agree. This has definitely been different.
Yeah.
Sarah, are you ready for this very haphazardly put together start bench ship?
I am ready. Let's make it happen.
All right. We are going to start off, since we've talked about a bunch of ECHLers and ECHL teams, we're going to start bench ship some ECHL teams, which feels appropriate that we'll be shipping one of them to the place they belong. So start bench ship the Orlando Solar Bears, the Indy Fuel, or the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. Sarah, kick us off.
All right, I am starting the Greenville Swamp Rabbits because I just love their logo. I want to spend all of my money on Greenville Swamp Rabbits merch because it is a rabbit with a carrot stick as a hockey stick, and that is the most amazing thing on earth. I'm benching the Indy Fuel because I can. I am shipping the Solar Bears, no offense to any of our great listeners from the state of Florida, but it's the state of Florida, and we're just jettisoning anything that we can. Sorry, Solar Bears. I love your logo. I love the polar bear with the sunglasses, but Florida, you got to go.
All right. Well, I'm taking a very different approach. Is I am starting the Orlando Solar Bears.
All right.
Because they have, without question, some of the best jerseys in professional hockey, period. I have, not to mention, too, they also employed their head coach, former head coach, Drake Barahowski, ran the company I worked for, StatsTrack. So I do have some, contractual obligation to give them credit here. But, yeah, I have two teams two ECHL teams whose jerseys I have my eye on. The Orlando Solar Bears is one of them. It's absolutely great. Their logo is great. And they've also had a lot of fun with the whole Sean Avery thing in previous years. So yeah, the Solar Bears are getting the start. I am torn a little bit here, but I'm going to bench the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. They also are the second team on my I want an ECHL jersey. Their jerseys and logo are fantastic. And also, I really liked when they were part of the Carolina organization before Carolina decided, no, what about Chicago? That they had the whole One Carolina thing. And I thought that marketed very well. Their jerseys are also sharp. And Greenville's a decent place. So I'm willing to go with it. The carrot as the hockey stick, very fun detail in that. I'm shipping the Indy Fuel for 3 reasons. Number one, Indy is not even the name of your town. It's Indianapolis.
Legit.
So shortening the name of your town, that's a no. Your logo is not even fuel related. It's a puck. I feel like that's not a great effort on your part. And while your Twitter is amazingly fun, if you don't follow the Indy Fuel on Twitter, very fun time. Their social media is excellent. Apparently, they were the ones that started the "is the hot dog a sandwich" thing.
Oh no!
And
no, if I knew that, that would have changed my.
That is a reason that they are going to get shipped. A hot dog is not a sandwich. You cannot go into a sandwich shop and get hot dogs. Panera Bread sandwich shop does not sell hot dogs. End of discussion. And Indy ran that into an internet meme apparently, and that's the third strike for them. You're getting shipped.
Oh man, can I revise my answer?
No, you can't revise your answer. It's legally binding, Sarah.
Oh man, hot dog is not a sandwich, jerks.
Let's go on to future considerations. Thank you to Wendell Young for telling us that steak dinner was part of the future considerations that he got for a trade one time. So, Sarah, for future considerations, would you rather have a steak dinner, a random ECHL player, or cash money?
I mean, is the random ECHL player my new house assistant? Can I ask him to change light bulbs I can't reach?
I'm pretty
are there
sure
stipulations on this?
Yeah, he's actually gonna have to play on your bottom 6. He's not your house boy.
All right, I'm starting cash money because it's freaking cash money. Thank you. I need that. We're benching the steak dinner just because I have to bench one. We're shipping the ECHL player to where he goes, to the ECHL. If he can't come here and change, put my fire alarm smoke detector thingy back up for me, then he's going back to the ECHL.
ladders exist. You could go to Home Depot and buy one for like.
I know, but I have one, but that's hard.
All right, so I'm starting steak dinner strictly because cash money is not for me personally; it's for my organization. And I'm sure I could use that to splurge on like a team steak dinner at the end of the season. That also means I have to go eat with other people. I just steak dinner. That's good by itself. I'm going to bench the random ECHL player because that random ECHL player could turn out to be somebody. It could even be as good as a steak dinner. So we're going to bench that. We're shipping cash money. Like, this is the AHL. If I'm that desperate for cash money.
You have bigger problems.
Yeah, you have bigger problems. I guess you could start an OnlyFans.
That's a crossover with my can he come help put my smoke detector back up.
You definitely cannot use your ECHL contracted player for that, Sarah. All right. Wow, we have best of luck to CC editing this. And lastly, a semi-serious one here. Who is your trade deadline insider? Is it Elliot Friedman, the Bob Father, or Frank Zaravelli? I will start us off here. Sarah kicked off the other two. We're starting Bob McKenzie. The man basically invented the position and then left it to go be a booze mogul. By the way, Bob, anytime you want to make us a presenting sponsor for Bobby Margaritas, but our email, our DMs, wide open for you. I will charge you $0 for that sponsorship. 0. We are nowhere near your target market, and I don't care. I am benching Elliot Friedman only because he had to go up against the Bob Father. Otherwise, instant start. 32 Thoughts podcast, great stuff. He lost the beard, which is a great thing too. And I do appreciate the amount of grief that he gives both Merrick and Amel on the podcast. Very fun. We're shipping Frank Saravelli for one reason. Apparently he's like in his 40s. That's what his hair looks like in his 40s. He looks like he should be like somewhere between Bob McKenzie and Elliot Friedman's age. Also, he totally ruined Seattle's expansion draft, like by leaking every single pick before it like hours before it happened, to the point where it's like, do I even need to tune in and watch this now? This is now worthless. So like, I understand being an insider is his job, and he does a very good job at it. I'm not trying to shame the man for that, but like, you literally ruined the like, no one else had those picks except for him, and he had all of them hours before the broadcast. I was just like, oh, this is lame now. So I do hold that against you, Frank, even though that it's literally your job. Sarah, what say you?
I am going in the exact same order for many of the same reasons. So we are aligned on this one. Bob McKenzie, he's the guy. He like, and he also keeps saying that he's retiring and then would just like drop a tweet and then disappear back into the ether. Like, I respect that a lot. Like, A+, no notes, don't change. Benching Friedman, again, we got to pick one. I also enjoy how angry everyone gets whenever he just makes up his own 3-letter abbreviations for teams. And it just sends the entire internet into like a tizzy of like, how dare you? The abbreviation isn't like VEG. Like, yeah, it's a bit. How have you, like, why are you just go? It's a bit. Come on now.
He went so far with that bit too. Like, I had a lot of respect when it's like, I can't even tell when he's like, he's like, oh yeah, OOT is playing WQO, and I'm like, I don't even know what teams these are. Yeah, but I respect the commit to the bit. Like, it takes like, I would have gotten bored and been like, I can't think up of anything. I'm done thinking of funny things. He keeps doing it. So like, kudos, like A+. Frank Saravelli. So Wikipedia says that he's 34. Which is even like, and they like triangulated it based off of like a couple of things referencing like when he went to college, which apparently he also went to Penn State for a little bit. Yeah, he did. If I'm shipping the Penn State.
Yes, it pains me to ship an alum of my school. For anyone who hasn't like realized this yet, we both went to but like many years apart. But like, I am older than Frank Saravelli, and I hate that. I don't like that at all. That makes me uncomfortable.
I am older than Frank Saravelli too, apparently, if he's 34. Like, I thought he was, I heard somewhere that he was like late 30s, early 40s. But if he's 34, I am older than him. This is definitely my original haircut. Frank, what happened?
Hockey happened. That is at least what Wikipedia says. So if like I'm wrong, this is Wikipedia's fault. But like I have taken like if it's on the internet, it's true. So
oh God. All right. Anything else for the good of the order, Sarah?
I'm good.
All right, take us out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening and watching the show. That is it for us today. The Calder Farmstead is a part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs, all at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. Please rate and review the podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Doing these things helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. If you cannot spell that, I don't know how you get through your day. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you too. Sarah, where can people find you?
So as always, my name is Sarah Avampato. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at Right Said Sarah. It's WRITE Said Sarah with an H. You can check out my writing at Full Press Hockey, where I talk about the Ontario Reign, or at Canes Country, where I talk about the Chicago Wolves. Sean, where can people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. You can find my stats work that includes the model, the game predictions, the season standings, the playoff predictions that we've been doing the entire year. Not magic numbers, like an actual percentage of how likely your team is to make the playoffs. And coming reasonably soon, that money puck graph that I made last year that was horrible to program. I've already started doing it, and I already hate it. So we are going to try and make that work as early as possible because it is a very big lift to do, especially with the way the AHL organizes the playoffs. But all of that being said, you can find all of that on my Tableau page at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. Thank you for tuning in for our impromptu and very far from our usual, more structured and more coherent show. For Sarah Avampato, I am Sean O'Brien. As always, please dump and chase responsibly.